So if you didn't read the message, we need a couple props for tonight. I always put a blanket down on the mat to begin because in this class, we're going to start with some somatic work. And that's all done on the ground, and that gives you a little bit of a cushion, a little bit of warmth, a little bit of comfort. And then have a second blanket or a pillow or something for your head. Tonight, we're going to also work with some tennis balls. So have 2 tennis balls. We might take one out of the sock at some point. So if you happen to have 3, you can always have a single on the side and a double in the sock, or you can take them in and out, totally up to you. A strap would be helpful and a set of blocks. So I think that's everything we need for tonight. Our practice tonight is called Meditation on Prasarita Padottanasana. That's a mouthful. It's a Sanskrit word. And it's basically a wide leg forward fold, but we're going to do some more specific diving into the pose. The somatic work's going to help prepare the body for doing some wide leg forward folding. And I just want to give you guys a quick little visual. So here is a picture of this pose. You probably are very familiar with it, but I wanted to show it to you because the blue are muscles that are active and engaged in this pose, and the red are muscles that are lengthening and or stretching. So you can kind of see, particularly the spinal muscles are stretching there. You can't see the backs of the legs, but they would also be red. On the back of the neck, the gluteal muscles. So we're going to get all those things stretched out. And in order to stretch out some of those things, we have to activate other muscles. So we'll be working a lot with, firming up the legs, firming up the kneecaps, engaging the upper back muscles to get into this pose. There's a lot of variations of this pose. 4 that are kind of official ones. So that basic one I showed you in that picture. There's also the one where you clasp your hands behind your back. You can reach out and hold your big toes. So there's a couple of different versions, and then there's a few, more creative versions that we can add in. We'll see how time goes, see how far we get. So any questions before we get started?
Nope.
Okay. So of course, always listen to your body. Anything doesn't feel right, feel free to adapt, make any modifications that you need. I'll try to offer some things as we go along. So I'm going to put everyone on mute in a moment, unless there's any questions.
Nope.
Okay. So if you do have a question, feel free to unmute at any time and let me know. It's up to you whether you want your camera on. I'd love to be able to see you guys, but if you feel like you don't want to practice with your camera on, that's your choice. If you can set up so I can see you and I can check in periodically. So, all right, here goes the mute. Okay. So I'm going to head back to the mat. You guys can go ahead and come on your backs when you're ready. So to start out, we're going to come into feet flat, knees bent, and you might even have a pillow under your head if you like. We're going to come into what's called constructive rest pose. Can you guys hear me out there okay? Someone just give me a wave. Okay, thank you. All right. So constructive rest, you could either have your feet hips distance and knees hips distance, or if you prefer, you might walk your feet a little wider and let your knees drop into the center. Over the next 2 weeks, we're going to be doing a lot of work with the area of the hips. So tonight is more about the folding forward aspect of the hips. Next week, we're going to work a lot on internal and external rotation in the hip joints. And when we bring the knees together like this, it's called internal rotation. So we're going to start with that and just come into a little bit of breath. Start to bring the belly, the breath into the belly, relaxing through your lower back. Maybe even feeling that breath come into your side ribs, So we're looking for a nice diaphragmatic breath. A lot of times when we've been busy throughout our day, trying to get everything done, we're in our more chest breath. And that's going to create a little kind of more sense of anxiety and stress in the body. So slowing the breath down, breathing into the belly, it's going to be more diaphragmatic. And we know that forward folds, one of the benefits of forward folding is more calming of the nervous system. So anytime we are in a forward fold, it's called spinal flexion, when the spine goes over the legs, versus when we do a back bend, that's spinal extension. And we're going to work with a little bit of both tonight. But in general, our forward folds are going to bring us a little bit more into that calm state of mind, more parasympathetic branch of our nervous system. Let's take about 2 more breath cycles here. Letting yourself arrive for your practice. All right. And then from here, if your knees are together, let's go ahead and separate the knees and walk the feet to about hips distance apart. And we're going to grab the tennis balls. Make sure you have those nearby. And then we're going to work with a little bit of movement, the somatic movement for the legs. So from here, go ahead and just drop your right knee out to the side. And as you drop your right knee out to the side, we open the inner leg. So we're opening the adductor region. And that's a big area of any kind of wide leg position. And then we're just going to go ahead and bring that leg back up and do that a few times. So let's do it with the breath. Let's inhale to open the leg. Exhale, bring it back in. 1 more of those. And then very simple, starting out nice and simple. Let's do that on the other side. So take that left knee out, open that inseam of the leg, and bring it back up. And we'll do 2 more rounds. Okay. Now from here, straighten your left leg, keep your right leg bent. Grab those tennis balls, and we're going to tuck the tennis balls right in under your right glute. So you got the ones in the sock, right under your right glute, and then open the knee out to the side. And then we start to get a little myofascial stretch into the gluteal muscles. And as we saw in that picture, the gluteal muscles are one of the areas that is going to be stretching in the pose we're doing tonight. So we're just going to warm it up a little bit. Now from here, if it feels okay, go ahead and press your leg a little down into the balls. And that's going to open up that inner leg a little bit more. And then bring the knee back up. So just like we did before, but now we've got those balls tucked under there. And then we're going to open that out to the side, give it a little squeeze if it feels okay. If not, just let it drop open, skip the squeeze, and then bring it back up. And let's do that 1 more time. So if we're tight in the gluteal areas, it might inhibit movement through the pelvis. It might inhibit our ability to forward fold. Okay, let's take the balls out and straighten that leg and just notice that side after doing the little bit of ball work there. And then let's go ahead and bend the other knee. Take your balls, we're going to tuck them into the kind of the side of your glute. It's not like all the way in there. And the 2 balls are kind of maybe a little slight angle out to the side. And then we're going to drop that left knee open. If it feels okay, add a little bit of a squeeze. So you're just going to press that leg down into the balls and then bring the knee back up. Okay, so do that a few more rounds. And then somatic work, we really want to notice what we're feeling. Like, what does that feel like there? Do you have a lot of soreness? tightness in that area? Does it feel good? Can you feel the muscles engaging as you drop that knee open? We're using the external rotator muscles. So anytime the knee is out to the side, that's external rotation. Okay, go ahead, release. Take the balls out of the way, slide that leg out. Take a pause. And then from here, let's bring the right knee into the chest. Give it a good squeeze. And then from here, we're gonna come into a half happy baby. First, we're gonna drop that knee a little out to the side, like that external rotation, and then lift the foot. And you have a few options. You can hold behind your leg, you can hold your ankle, you can hold your foot. You could also put a strap around your foot. So find that half happy baby. Other leg could be straight or bent. See what feels right for you. And then notice what there is to notice. Maybe getting a little stretch again through that inseam of the leg. The external rotating muscles are working to open that leg out. And now if it would feel good for you, start to straighten the leg out to the side. And then we're gonna re-bend. And just do that a few rounds. Inhale, maybe straighten the leg a little bit or all the way, up to you. And then re-bend. And let's do that one more time. Take the leg out to the side and re-bend. Good, and then release and straighten that leg. Always in the in-between, let's kind of notice what one leg feels like versus the other. And then we're gonna bring the left knee into the chest. Take that knee a little out to the side and then half happy baby. Hold on wherever you like, behind the leg, ankle, foot, strap if you like. And just hold it for a moment. The foot is flexed. Again, notice what you're feeling, any areas that are stretching, any areas that are engaging. And then when you're ready, a little bit of straighten and bend. And you might just do part way. You might go all the way straight and do a few rounds like that. But just take it slowly and notice what you feel. Good, and then release. And we'll slide that leg out. All right, from here, let's bring both knees into the chest. Open the knees out wide, and we're gonna reach down and hold your ankles or your feet or your shins, wherever you can. So we call this air bound angle. So feet are in the air, the knees are wide like bound angle. And now from here, we're gonna go ahead and start to bring the feet up into a full happy baby. And then we're gonna bring them back down into that air bound angle. So let's try that one a few times. Bring the feet up, flex the feet, and then bring the feet back down. Okay. So external rotation is very common in yoga. We do a lot of poses where the legs are externally rotated. Not so many with internal rotation, which is what we're going to work more with next week. So right now we're in external rotation. Now keep that going. Some of you are going to go ahead and straighten the legs out to the side if that feels good, and then we'll bring it back in. So let's try a few rounds like that. And you could stay with bent legs, or you're going to go ahead and come into straight legs. One more time. And then release. Set the feet down, straighten the legs, take a little pause. All right, so we're going to bring both knees in again and extend the legs up straight. Flex both feet.
Keep your rib cage kind of pressed down. We're gonna take the right leg and start to open it out to the side. Go slowly, use control, and eventually that leg's gonna be hovering off the floor. We're gonna try to get it to the floor, but in order to do that, we have to roll toward the right. And let that right leg come down, reach the left leg up toward the ceiling. Now from here, keep reaching through the left heel and start to bring the top leg toward the bottom leg. Maybe it's gonna come all the way down, maybe it won't. And then reach that top leg back up. Bottom leg is still down, and now we're gonna bring the bottom leg to meet the top leg. Let's do that on the other side. Start to take the left leg out to the side. I'm gonna hit my wall, so I'm gonna have to move over a little bit. And then eventually come into that hover, roll toward your left, reach up through your right leg, and then slowly start to bring the right leg down to meet the left as far as you can. And then from here, bring the right leg back up and bring the left leg back up. So we're just really opening those inner thighs, working with our hips. Let's repeat that. Right leg comes down. Use control. We're also strengthening the legs here. Eventually roll, let that leg come down. Pause. Reach the other leg high and then start to bring it over. So that's a good little step there to reach that leg up, because that's going to help you get it closer to the floor. And then back up, right leg up. And again, other side. Left leg down with control. Reach the right leg up, up, up. And then meet the legs. Feel that stretch through the outer hip. And then leg comes up. And we're going to do that one more time on each side. Just because it's fun. I like this one. Reach the leg up. And we're also getting some core work in here with these twists. And finish up on your own other side. Remember that reach of the straight leg, the top leg up first. Both legs are straight, but top leg reaches up. All right, go ahead, release, hug those knees in, maybe make some circles on your lower back. And set the feet down. Let's roll to the side and come on up into a seated posture. Check on our time. Okay. So we're gonna come into our bound ankle position, soles of the feet together, holding on to your ankles or your shins. And we're gonna do a seated cat-cow while in bound angle. So whenever we do forward folds, there's a rotational element to the pelvis. So when we do cat-cows, that's a good time to kind of practice rotation of the pelvis. So as you inhale, we're gonna arch the back and roll your sit bones forward. And as you exhale, you're gonna round your back and you kind of rock toward the backs of your sit bones. And then let's repeat. Inhale, arch your back. Exhale, round. And just get that movement of the pelvis. There's a rocking on your sit bones. So we'll do a few more rounds like that. One more round. All right, coming all the way up, grab your set of balls in the sock. Right leg, you're gonna place the balls underneath the outer leg. So the balls are kind of up in the horizontal, the tall way, let's say that, so that they're hitting two spots on your leg. You're gonna bring your other foot flat, left foot flat, and we're gonna rock over, so you're on top of those balls, and you're just gonna rock a little bit on top of the balls. So we're doing a little release for the outer hip region. These are our external rotators. but they also help with a lot of other things. And if they're tight, it can inhibit our movement of our pelvis. Okay, take the balls out. Keep that leg dropped open, the other foot flat. We're gonna bring that arm inside the leg. And then you're gonna use a little resistance. You're gonna press your arm and leg into each other as you turn and look over your right shoulder. And then hold that for another breath with that resistance of pressing the arm and leg into each other. And that helps open up that inner leg region. Good, and then let's release and do that on the other side. So now the balls come under that externally rotating leg, drop it out to the side, and then we're gonna lean into it and get on top of those balls and just kind of rock in and out. And if you don't have balls tonight, just do everything we're doing without the balls. If you don't have them, I highly recommend having a pair because there's a lot of fun stuff we can do with them. And I tend to use them a lot in my classes. Okay, and then go ahead, come off the balls, bring your right hand on the inside of the leg and then press them into each other, create a little resistance and turn and look over your left shoulder. Hold that for a breath or two. Okay, let's unwind, come back to the center. Keep your right leg in that bound angle shape, extend your left leg out to the side. Now you're welcome to sit up on props here, especially if you're new to this type of work. You might want to be up on a pillow or a folded blanket or even a block. So one leg is straight, one leg is bent. First, we're going to fold on the inside of the legs. And as you fold, get a sense of your sit bones tipping back behind you. And you'll notice as you kind of roll your sit bones back behind you, it increases that stretch to the inner thighs. So one thing we don't want to do in our forward folds is to bend up here because then we're just rounding our backs, creating a lot of congestion in the body. So we want to hinge from our hips and keep that spine nice and long. Now we're gonna add some resistance again. So the straight leg, take that same hand on the inside of the leg. And you're gonna press your hand and leg into each other. Press your thigh into the floor. Flex your foot and keep your toes pointing up. And then hold that for a breath or two. We're getting a nice stretch through inner leg, but we're firming up the quadricep. So in order for the hamstrings to release in the back of the leg, we need to firm up the front of the leg. They're reciprocal muscles. Okay, come back up slowly. Keep the hand on the inside of that leg. Press and resist and turn towards your bent leg side. And keep that feeling of your hand and leg pressing into each other. Imagine you could grow your left leg longer. Reach out through your left heel. Keep pressing your thigh down, firming your kneecap. This is an active stretch. All right, release back to the center and switch legs. So one leg bent, right leg straight now. We're gonna fold on the inside of the legs, right in the center, and let your sit bones tip back behind you. So we don't want those sit bones tucked under because then we're not gonna get anywhere. We need to be able to let that pelvis rotate. Then bring that right hand to the inside of the leg, add resistance, press the hand and leg into each other. Press your thigh down into the ground so that quad's firming. And we're lifting the toes, spreading the toes, flexing the foot. Take a couple breaths, notice what you're feeling in your body. Always good to notice differences from one side to the other. Notice muscles that are stretching and or engaging. Okay, slowly start to come up. Keep that hand there. Press the hand and leg. Turn towards your bent leg side. You can have your hand on your thigh or behind you. And then keep pressing the hand and leg. Keep firming your thigh. Keep flexing the foot. Let's hold there another breath. The other thing we can be working here is our upper spine. So can you engage the muscles right between your shoulder blades? So that's our rhomboid muscles. We want those engaged to help keep the chest nice and open. And then release and come back to the center, back to your bound angle, soles of the feet together. Again, feel free to sit up on something if you prefer. See if you can keep your spine nice and tall. Now from here, bring both hands palms up on the inside of your legs and press your legs up into your hands and your arms down into your legs. Create that resistance. And then relax. Let's do that again. Press your arms and legs into each other. So we're engaging these inner legs. And release one more time. Good, now we're gonna do the opposite. Bring your hands on the underside of your legs and press your legs down into your hands and your hands up into your legs. Press. A little different feeling now. I feel this for me more around my sit bone area. And then relax, and 2 more of those. Press. And release. One more time. Press. And release. Okay, draw those knees up and let's come into tabletop position, all fours. And we'll do our regular traditional cat-cows. So set up hands under shoulders, knees under hips, but before we do regular full cat-cow, I wanna work on just the pelvis. So take a moment, we're gonna keep the upper body still. Push through your palms, and then as you inhale, just roll your sit bones up. So you'll have an arch in your low back. And then as you exhale, roll your sit bones down and tuck your tailbone under. Do that 2 more rounds without moving your upper body. So get that feeling of rotation of your pelvis. A lot of us might be stuck in different patterns in the pelvis. We could be stuck in an anterior or posterior tilt. We want to get out of that stuckness. Okay, come back to neutral. Now we're going to incorporate the upper body. So as you inhale, lift your sit bones, lift your chest, lift your gaze. Just watch the back of the neck, keep it long. And then tuck the tailbone under and round the spine. And let's continue. Inhale, pelvis tips up, sit bones lift, head lifts. Exhale, round. 3 more cycles on your own. Focusing on the rotation of the pelvis the whole time. Last round. Now after this next one, come back to neutral and stay here. We're going to come into puppy pose. So we're going to walk the hands forward. So you keep the hips relatively over the knees and start to let your head come toward the floor. Thinking about your upper spine moving into your body. Remember the picture we looked at, and right in between the shoulder blades, that was an area that was engaged. Keep the arms firm, hold it here. Start to peel your hands back toward your knees, slide toward your knees. And if you can, sit up on your heels. If you can, go as far as you can. All right, so just sit here on the heels, take a breath. And then we're gonna slide back into tabletop position and extend the right leg out to the side. Now I have my toes pointing forward. You can have your foot however it feels right for you. We're just gonna take an inhale here. You might have your other toes, your left toes tucked or flat, up to you. Start to shift back any amount and feel that maybe a little stretch to the inner leg, but you're also stretching the sole of the foot if you have the toes tucked. If you have the foot flat, maybe you're stretching the top of the foot a little bit. And let's do a few of those, shift forward and back. Now, if you have your toes flat, try tucked. If they're tucked, try flat. How far you come back is up to you. You might go a little, you might go a lot. Just like Jenny from the block. You could go a little, you could go a lot. How's that song? Forget that song. Okay, come back to center, and we're gonna do the other side. Extend the leg out to the side. Oh, I know, I used to have a little, now I have a lot. Totally different. Okay, remember, either toes tucked or untucked. We're gonna do both, doesn't matter. Start with your preference. Start to shift back any amount. Some of you go all the way to the heel, some of you don't. Listen to your body. And then whichever way you did the toes, let's do the opposite. So once I untuck my toes, I might be able to sit back a little farther. And then let's go ahead, bring that leg back in, take the knees wide, toes touch, and if you can, move back into a wide knee child's pose. And if you can't do that, you can stay in tabletop position, no worries. Let's take one more breath there. And then we're gonna slide all the way down onto the belly and have your set of balls. We're gonna work with those again. So kind of half of this practice is floor work, somatic work, ball work, and then we're gonna do the next half standing work. So we're gonna bring the right knee out to the side, lining it up more or less with your hip. And then some of you have done this with me before. We're gonna put the balls on the inner thigh. So we're stretching out that inseam of the leg. Now just putting those balls there, and you want kind of them stacked so that they hit two different spots of the inner leg. That might be enough. That could be pretty tender. If it's too much, take them out, no worries. And if you can, we're gonna slide that knee in and out. So you might kind of put your hand down and just slide that knee in and out so that the balls kind of massage that whole inseam of the leg. That's it. So the hip is like a 360-degree ball and socket kind of joint. It's got a lot of range of motion when we use it. When we don't use it, we lose it. And so we're working this whole hip area to try and warm this up to increase our ability to forward fold, which requires that movement of the pelvis. Okay, come back to pause. Your arms are like in a Sphinx pose. You can clasp your hands or hands flat, up to you. Take a breath there. And now press the inner thigh into the ball and then relax. Press your inner thigh down into the ball. It's going to increase that myofascial stimulation and then release. One more time, press and release. And of course, if it's too much, just go ahead and skip it. Okay, take that leg back and pause. And just notice that right leg. Let's do that on the other side. So I take that left knee out to the side, lining the knee up with the hip. So I'm going to turn around so I don't turn my head away from you guys. And you're going to put those balls in under the inner thigh. Propped up in Sphinx pose, take a breath or two just to let the legs settle into the balls. And then when you're ready, go ahead and start a little sliding action. Slide in, slide out. And notice if one leg is different than the other. Curiously, my left leg is a lot more sore than my right. I don't really know why, but it is. And once you feel like you've had enough sliding action, go ahead and pause. And then we'll do the press and release. Press and release. One more, press and release. All right, go ahead and release. Take the balls out, slide the leg back, come all the way down to your belly. Take a pause there, feel and sense into that left leg. How does it feel? Good. And then we're going to press up into tabletop position. If you have a blanket down, now's a good time to take the blanket off your mat so we have some stick to do our standing work. All right. So we're going to come into our first downward facing dog. From tabletop position, walk your hands a little forward of your shoulders. Turn your hands out a hair, not real far. Just so let's say your index finger's kind of pointing straight ahead. Tuck your toes and lift up into down dog. And we're going to press into the thumb and index finger side of the hand as we pedal out the feet. So bend one knee, then the other, walk your dog. And when we do the walking the dog, we're opening up the soles of the feet, the Achilles tendon, the calf, the hamstrings, the spinal muscles. A lot of those same muscles are going to be utilized in our peak pose. And this is the whole back chain of fascia that goes from the sole of your foot all the way up the back of the leg, all the way up your spine, into your head, and connects into your inner eyes. It's a big sheath of fascia called the dorsal sheath. Okay, from here, walk your feet forward, top of the mat. Take a good bend in your knees and fold forward. Hands on thighs, halfway lift. Little bend in the knees, fold forward. And then inhale, let's reach the arms all the way up. And exhale, hands to your heart. Okay, let's just take a couple of sun salutations. Start to get a little warmth in the body. So when you're ready, let's inhale, reach the arms up. Exhale, fold forward. Now always take a little bend here, halfway lift. Hands could stay on the floor, shins or thighs. But what I'd like you to do is get your chest kind of parallel to the floor. And then we're going to plant the hands, step back, plank pose. Top of a push-up. Shoulders over the wrists. You can drop knees if you prefer. And we'll lower all the way down. Inhale, cobra, opening your chest. See if you can feel those upper back muscles engaged. We need those later. And then lower down, downward facing dog. Modification is go to knees first and then down dog. Take an inhale in your dog. Exhale, walk forward, top of the mat. Halfway lift, inhale. Exhale, fold. Inhale, arms reach. Exhale, hands to your heart. And let's do another round. Inhale, circle up. Exhale, fold. Halfway lift, inhale. Step back, plank pose, top of a push-up. Modification is to drop the knees, lower down. Reach back through your legs. Inhale, cobra, upper spine engaged. Exhale, down dog, either all fours first or right to dog. Inhale here. Exhale, walk it forward, top of the mat. Halfway lift, inhale. Exhale, fold. Inhale all the way up. Exhale, hands to your heart. Very good. Okay, we're gonna come into another fold here. So I'm gonna widen the feet a little bit. So outer hips distance apart. We're gonna bend the knees a little bit. And then right where those hip creases are, we're gonna bend there. So you might wanna put your hands there like karate chop. Pinky fingers in your hip creases. And as you forward fold, those hip creases deepen. And then let's bring the hands down to the floor or a set of blocks. Keeping those feet like wider than your hips, we're gonna bend down toward a squat. So you don't have to go deep, it's kind of like chair pose. Press into your feet, lift your toes, spread your toes. Now from here, start to lift your sit bones up toward the ceiling. Let your head start to come down. The legs might get straight, they might not. And let's repeat that. Bend the knees like chair pose. And I want you to try and lift your toes. That's gonna help keep the arch of the foot lifting. And then slowly start to lift your sit bones. And fold. Let the head starts to come down, the sit bones come up, almost like a lever. So when you bend the knees, the sit bones come down. And as you straighten the legs, the sit bones are leading the way. Okay, bend the knees, hands to hips, push in your feet, come all the way up. Okay, so when we're doing something that's a forward fold, we kind of are not wanting the sit bones to kind of turn down like when we do cat-cow and tuck under. We want the sit bones to lift up because that creates more length in our lower spine. So now we're going to try that same thing, but with our hands clasped behind our back. And if you can't clasp your hands, grab your belt and you can use that instead. Now clasp your hands, but keep a loose fist. Don't put the heel of the hand together. A lot of times when we put the heel of the hand together, it can be a little more strenuous. And I want you to be able to keep the arms a little wider so they're not squeezing together so much. And then think about this area right here, your collarbones. I want you to open the collarbones up by pulling your hands apart isometrically. So pull your hands apart and notice how that opens your chest. And you're engaging your upper back muscles, another thing we're targeting tonight. We're gonna bend those knees a little bit. Remember the karate chop, hinge from those hip creases and bring your chest kind of parallel to the floor. Like your chair pose, keep your chin down and the crown of the head extending. You might forward fold all the way with the knees bent. And then maybe start to lift those sit bones up and straighten your legs. And then re-bend the knees. And then fold again. It's like a lever. Every time you bend and the sit bones come down, the chest is parallel to the floor. And then every time you fold, letting that head come down. One more time, bend the knees. And then straighten. That's it. And this time, release. Come all the way up. Reach your arms overhead. And draw your hands to your heart. Very good. Okay, let's come to the top of the mat if you're not there and put your blocks there. Some of you might want them for stepping back into a lunge. If you don't need them for lunges, then you can skip them. All right, let's stand in mountain pose. Root down into your feet, lift through the crown of your head, open the collarbones like we just did. So there's a little bit of tone between your shoulder blades. And then inhale, circle your arms up. Exhale, fold. And we're gonna step the right foot to the back of the mat, coming into a lunge. If you're using your blocks, move your blocks back so they're underneath your shoulders. If you're not using your blocks, hands under your shoulders. So you're in a lunge. From here, we're gonna pivot around to face the long edge of your mat. So most of us are on the right edge of the mat. So now we're in that wide leg forward fold. But this first one, we're not even forward folding. We're gonna stay in the halfway lift position. First, look at your feet. Let's have the feet parallel, or even a tiny bit pigeon-toed. And then stay here with straight arms. If it's hard to reach the floor, use your blocks under your hands, okay? Now from here, think about your sit bones moving toward the wall behind you without moving your hips back. And then the crown of the head reaching toward the wall in front of you. So we're creating spinal extension. Let your chin be down. Crown of the head extending, sit bones reaching back. Stay here, straight arms. Another breath. So this is strengthening for the spine. Staying this halfway up shape, and we're already getting a little stretch in those hamstrings. One last breath. And now we're gonna pivot back around to the front of the mat. Step forward and fold over your legs. Always bend those knees a little bit to fold if you're tighter in that back chain. Inhale all the way up. Exhale, hands to your heart. Good. Okay, let's do that on the other side. Inhale, reach your arms up. Exhale, fold. Step your left foot to the back of your mat in your lunge. Move your hands in line with your shoulders. Move your blocks if you're using them. And pivot around to face the long edge of your mat. Changing it up this time. Again, feet parallel or slightly pigeon-toed. So here's another little tip. Eventually, we're going to fold forward. The wider your legs are, the easier it is to kind of get your hands down. But the wider your legs, the less stability you might have. So you have to negotiate with yourself how far apart your legs are going to go. This time, we're going to walk our hands forward like we're doing down dog. Now, roll those sit bones a little up. Bring your head in line with your arms. Lengthen the back of your neck. And from here, we're going to bend those knees like we did when we were doing that chair pose variation. Bend the knees and start to lift your sit bones up. So those are those two bones that we sit on. The ischial tuberosity is the anatomical name. Bend and straighten a few times. So we can straighten the legs two different ways. We can push the knees back, or we can lift the sit bones up. It's going to be more effective for our work we're doing today to lift the sit bones up and not just shove those knees back. One more time, go very slowly. And as you start to straighten, notice the inseam of your legs. Notice your sit bones. Notice your spine. And then walk your hands back in. Pivot around to the front of your mat. Step forward. Fold over your legs. That little bend. Inhale, reach the arms up. Exhale, hands to your heart. Very good. Okay, let's try that again. We're going to add some things on now. So I'm going to be switching my side, so I always am facing you guys. Inhale, arms reach. Exhale, fold, blocks or not. Step the right foot to the back of the mat. Move your hands back in line with your front foot. This time, spin your back heel down. Cartwheel your arms up. You're coming into a warrior two. So your chest is facing the long edge of your mat. Arms are out to a T. All right, we're going to bring our back hand on the back hip, front hand to the inner leg. Going to use that resistance again. Press your hand and leg into each other. And then from here, slide your hand down your inner leg as far as you like. You might go all the way to the ankle if you want. And then we're going to slide back up. Let's do that again. Slide the hand down the inner leg. And come back up. From here, straighten the leg. Push through your big toe mound. Should get a little tone in your calf. And same thing, slide that hand down the inner leg with a little resistance. Hand and leg press into each other. Come back up. One more time. Slide the hand down the inner leg. And come back up. Go back to warrior two. Straighten your leg, parallel your feet, hands to hips. Turn your feet parallel or slightly pigeon-toed. Bend the knees and hinge forward from your hips and fold forward. So I'm going to watch you guys for a moment. That's it. Now stay in the halfway up shape for a moment. So straighten your arms. Maybe you're going to use the blocks under your hands. Good. So hands are on the floor or blocks, either way, okay? And they're starting out hands under shoulders. Bend the knees a little bit and then roll those sit bones a little up. From here, let's see if we can walk the hands back in line with your feet. If you can, palms are flat. You can use blocks here if you like. And we're going to squeeze the elbows towards each other like you're squeezing a block between your elbows. The arms are parallel to each other. Now start to let your chest and head come down. Start to let those sit bones lift up. Head might come toward the floor. Keep pressing into your hands and squeezing your elbows towards each other. And see if you can feel any engagement in your quadriceps, fronts of the legs firming, lifting the knees, and a little firming right between your shoulder blades. So you're using those upper back muscles. Now, if you're not using those upper back muscles, come back to the halfway up shape. I'd rather have you work there than really let the spine be rounded. Okay, one more breath there. And then walk your hands back out under your shoulders. Pivot back around to the front of your mat and step forward. Fold over your legs. Inhale, reach your arms up. Exhale, hands to your heart. Very good. Okay, let's try that on the other side. So starting from mountain pose, inhale, reach your arms up. Exhale, fold, hands to the floor or your blocks. Step your left foot to the back of the mat. Move your hands back, spin that heel down, cartwheel your arms up, you're in your warrior two. That's it. All right. Root down into your feet, lift through your chest, back hand on the hip, front hand to the inner leg, and slide that hand down the inseam of the leg with resistance. So it helps open up that hip, open up the inner thigh, come back up. One more time with the leg bent. Good, now straighten the leg, press through the big toe mound, and repeat. Slide that hand down the inseam of the leg, and come back up. One more time. Try not to jam your knees, especially that front knee. We want to keep a micro bend, so we use the muscles. Good, and now come up, parallel your feet. So we're gonna keep those feet parallel or slightly pigeon-toed again. Stand here for a moment. Really firm your legs, firm your kneecaps. So the kneecaps are zippering the legs up. So the knees and the thighs are lifting. Now let's try to lift the toes up. That's gonna get those arches lifting. Can you keep the arches lifting but let the toes come back down? And now put a little bend in the knees. From here, we're gonna keep the hands behind the back and we're gonna interlace the hands like we did before. You might need to use your strap if this is challenging for your shoulders. Now, open across your collarbones by pulling the hands apart isometrically and get those upper back muscles to engage. We're still lifting the arches. Little bend in the knees, start to hinge forward. And you might stay in that halfway up shape. You might start to bend those knees a little more as you lower. And then once you lower, try to lift your shoulders, lift your sit bones, and firm your thighs. It's almost like you're pushing the floor away with your feet. You're grounding through your feet to help facilitate the engagement of the legs. And when we firm the quads, it helps the back of the legs release more. Sit bones are lifting to help keep that tip in the pelvis. Last breath. Good, release your hands back down to the floor. Walk them under your shoulders, pivot around to the front of your mat, and step it forward. Good, and then inhale, reach the arms all the way up. And exhale, bring your hands to your heart. Very good. Okay. So we're running out of time, which I can't believe it's already 7 o'clock. So we're not going to do that whole sequence again because I want to make sure we have cool down time. But we're going to repeat the pose once again. So feet out wide. Parallel your feet or a little pigeon-toed is fine for this one. The little bit of pigeon-toed, I like. It kind of gives me a little bit more openness across my back. And it gives me more stability. So it's up to you if you want to play with that. This time, we're going to see if we can reach down. You can certainly repeat any of the versions we already did. You can do the halfway lift. You can walk your hands out like dog. You can interlace your hands. Or this next version, we're going to see if we can use our peace fingers. So make a peace sign. And you're going to hook your big toes with your peace sign fingers. Okay, so this is a little bit more advanced, a little bit more challenging. So we're gonna start with hands on hips. Firm the legs, zipper up the legs. Root your feet down, keep your arches lifting. And then hinging from your hips, bend the knees a little bit, fold forward. And again, let's just put hands under shoulders for a moment. Start to kind of tip your sit bones up. And then with a little bend in the knees, fold and reach out and see if you can hook your big toes with those peace fingers. And then start to lift your sit bones up and let the head come down. Here we can bend the elbows out toward the sides. So there's a broadness to the back, a broadness to the chest. We're keeping the arches lifting. Imagine you could zipper up from your inner foot to your inner thigh to your pelvic floor and lift your pelvic floor and your sit bones up any amount. We might keep those knees bent. And let the head, if you can, come toward the floor. You could also do this in the halfway up shape. So we stay here. Maybe you want to straighten the arms and you keep that spine more straight. Otherwise, you're in that full version. And let's take one more breath there. Very good. And then go ahead, walk your hands out under your shoulders, heel toe your feet in a little bit. And when you're ready to, bring your hands to your hips, push down in your feet, and we come all the way up to stand. Take a breath. You did it. Got all the hard work done. Okay, we are going to come down now onto the floor. So let's see, we did padottanasana A, C, and D. We didn't really do B, but we did 3 of those versions, plus we did the down dog version. So we did a couple different versions of that pose. So coming into seated now, with your feet out in front of you, let's drop into bound angle again. Hold on to your ankles, your shins, wherever you can. And we're gonna lean toward the backs of our sit bones. See if you can get your feet up off the ground and balance on your sit bones. So you're toward the backs of your sit bones. Okay, now if you can, use those peace fingers again around your big toes. If this is too much for you, you can also hold your ankles or wherever you can. If you can, try to keep your spine in and not rounding. Take the right leg and start to take it out to the side like that half happy baby. Maybe you're gonna straighten that leg. Very good, bring it back down. Other side, first get that spine in, bring the leg out to the side. You might stay there or straighten that leg. Very nice, and then bring that foot back in. Once again, get that spine in. You can stay here or let's try both legs. You might do more like a happy baby. You might take those legs straight and then reach out through your heels, get your spine in, lift your chest, balance on the sit bones. You guys look awesome. All right, soles of the feet back together, back to your bound angle. Take an inhale, lift up tall, find the tops of your sit bones, and then hinge forward. Maybe you want to clasp your feet. Now you're toward the fronts of your sit bones. So we're back into a pelvic tilt. Stretch out those inner thighs for a few breaths. Last bit of work we're going to do is more for stabilization of the SI joint. So those standing forward folds can be challenging on our lower backs, especially if we're tight in our back chain. So we want to do some stabilization work. So it's going to be a little bit of core and a little bit of, well, let's say mostly core. Let's slowly come up. Draw the legs together with your hands, and then let's go ahead, come on our backs. Keep your balls within reach. We might be using those again. Place your hands underneath your bottom with your palms facing the floor. And we're going to take the legs straight up. Flex the feet, firm up your thighs again, inner thighs hug in towards each other. Okay, from here, start to lower the legs any amount. And you might just find a spot and work on that. If you can, you're gonna push into your arms, lift your upper body off the ground, and then hover your heels above the ground. Reach through your heels, push through your forearms, and then slowly bring the legs back up and bring the upper body back down. So how far you take this is up to you. Squeeze those inner legs, reach through the heels, lower the legs any amount, and then push in your forearms, lift your chest. Maybe those heels hover above the ground. And then legs back up, upper body back down. So this is strengthening for those lower abdominals. One more time. Good, and release. Grab your balls. Squeeze them a little bit in the middle so that there's a little space between them. Pop them right underneath, down the area like in your sacrum. So as if it were kind of in one cheek and the other. I'm gonna have a little space in the center for where your tailbone goes. And it's not at your sit bones, it's kind of middle of your glute region. It's not in your lumbar, it's not at the very top of your sacrum, but a little bit down. So you get a little bit of a gluteal massage. And then you can stay there, that might feel pretty good, or you can bring your knees in towards your chest and extend those legs up again. And that might increase that pressure of the balls. Just kind of giving a little myofascial stretch to those gluteal muscles. And we get a little bit of an inversion. Let's hold that for 2 more breaths. And after that second breath, bend the knees, let the feet come back down. Lift your hips, slide the balls out, come all the way down. Okay, the next one, some of you have done with me before, is called push-pull, and it's really good for stabilizing the core and the SI joints. We're gonna bring the knees over the hips and place your hands right on your knees. Shins are kind of parallel to the floor, and we're gonna press our lower back and our ribs into the floor till you feel your core muscles activate. Now take your right hand and push it into your knee and push your knee into your hand. So we have that resistance. Your left hand is gonna pull your knee away from your hand and try to pull your knee with your hand. So right hand is pushing, left hand is pulling, which gives a stabilization. Now press down through your back ribs and you're gonna switch the roles. So now left hand pushes, right hand pulls. And those 2 opposing actions really engage our deep core. And now go ahead and switch a few times. Push and pull. On your own, just switch, but press the lower back down so those deep transverse abdominis muscles are engaging. 1 more on each side. Good, and let it go. We're gonna end maybe like 5 minutes late, as per usual with me. We're gonna grab 1 block. And we're gonna come into supported bridge. Let's go ahead, lift the hips up, slide the block. Now that block goes on the sacrum. So right underneath your sacrum. That's that flat bone at the base of your spine. And let's go ahead, extend the right leg nice and long. And that's gonna open that hip flexor. We did a lot of bending here at this hip crease. When we forward fold, we deepen our hip creases. So now let's do the opposite and open it up. Maybe take your right arm overhead and just lengthen that side. Take a few breaths. A lot of us are tight in this region because we probably sit a lot, just part of our daily living. So it's good to open it up. Breathe into the low belly here. And then let's go ahead and switch it out. So bend the right knee and extend the left leg long and take the left arm overhead and breathe. Okay, let's go ahead and rebend that knee. We're gonna lift the hips and slide the block out, come all the way down. If we had more time, we could, maybe extend both legs and stay there for a little longer. Even a full bridge would have been nice. But since we're running out of time, I'm gonna forego those poses today. Let's go ahead and bring the knees into the chest and just give your lower back a nice little stretch. If you want, you can lift your head, chest, and shoulders, go into a little ball. And then release your head back down. And if you want, you can go into another happy baby, both feet up. Maybe you're gonna hold both feet. You can stay there. You can even go to the wide legs again if you want. We did a lot of that, but if that would feel good, you can try it here. And bring it back in. Hug one more time. Take one more breath there, letting the lower back relax down. All right, so we're gonna make sure we have some support for Shavasana. So if you have a bolster at home, you can put that under your knees. If you don't, you could use your 2 yoga blocks and make yourself a little setup here with a rolled blanket. So you can put your blanket on top of your 2 blocks, and it makes a little shelf for your knees. You can kind of drape your legs over this. You can also use a yoga bolster or some bed pillows if you have those. And then we're gonna use a pillow for your head if you have it. And we're gonna take the legs over this little setup and make sure you scoot your hips nice and close so that your thighs are really supported. So I know I said backs of knees, but better to even just get the thighs onto those blocks so it's a little bit above the knees. And then your heels can rest on the floor. I'm gonna come up, you guys are gonna take Shavasana. So resting pose now after all that work. So as I mentioned earlier in the practice, we do a lot of forward folding. We're doing spinal flexion, which when it relates to the nervous system, spinal flexion is going to be more calming. It's more introspective. We're folding in on ourselves versus a back bend that we're really opening ourselves up. So it has this calming effect on the nervous system when we fold inward. So now just starting to let go and soften, release into your Shavasana. Where now we're face up, we're a little more open. And sometimes that can feel a little more vulnerable than when we're folded in on ourselves. So if it does, maybe put some weight over your body. So you might want to have a nice heavy blanket for your Shavasana, or if you have a weighted blanket at home or sandbags, good to put a little weight on the body will help you feel more grounded and help you settle into stillness. Welcome a soft breath in your abdomen now. A lot of the forward folding engages our abdominals, engages our psoas, our hip flexors. So now let it all be soft. And as you breathe, fill the lower belly with your breath. So culturally, we often suck our bellies in when we breathe, and that just creates a vicious cycle of more anxiety, stress in our system. We'll let the belly be soft at the end of our yoga practice in particular. And as the belly softens, the diaphragm will move up and down a little easier. Really brings that sense of calm to our system. I'm going to have you stay where you are for a few more moments. I'm going to share a little reading before we come out of Shavasana. So just stay where you are, but you might start to invite in a little deeper breath. One of my other favorite aspects of forward folds is that we place our head below our heart. And it's this very introspective, humble kind of position when we put our head below our hearts, like giving more importance to the heart as opposed to kind of our thoughts, our mind, the ego mind. So this is a reading from John O'Donohue about the voice of the heart. Somewhere in every heart, there is a discerning voice. This voice distrusts the status quo. It sounds out the falsity in things and encourages dissent from the images things tend to assume. It underlines the secret crevices where the surface has become strained. It advises distance and opens up a new perspective through which the concealed meaning of a situation might emerge. The inner voice makes any complicity uneasy. Its intention is to keep the heart clean and clear. This voice is an inner whisper, not obvious or known to others outside. It receives little attention and is usually not highlighted among a person's qualities. Yet so much depends on that small voice. The truth of its whisper marks the line between honor and egoism, kindness and chaos. In extreme situations which have been empty of all shelter and tenderness, that small voice whispers from somewhere beyond and encourages the heart to hold out for dignity, respect, beauty, and love. So before we come out, let's just take a moment and put one hand over your heart and the other hand on top. Just feel the warmth of your hands over your heart. Honoring that voice within. When we fold in on ourselves, we might find it a little easier to listen to that voice. Take a couple moments now. You can start to move a little bit. Maybe take a little stretch. Hug knees. See what feels good. Take your time to eventually come over onto your side for a pause. And let's try not to pop yourself up. It can be really challenging for our nervous system if we pop up out of Shavasana. So linger on your side for a moment. And when you feel ready to, you can slowly start to bring yourself back up. Take your time. And we'll once again find a seated position, sitting up nice and tall. My new babies are joining us. I didn't let them in the whole time because they've been a terror in here, so I kept them out, but they're coming in now. So we're going to go ahead and sit up tall, activate those muscles between your shoulder blades again, just to keep your collarbones broad, your chest open, nice tall spine. And then when you're ready, we'll go ahead, place hands in front of the heart. And we'll take an inhale. As you exhale, bow your head down to the voice within, to your heart. Thank you for joining me tonight, everyone. Namaste.